Hey, Sam, how are you?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing?
Good.
Day is it? It's Tuesday after the Easter long weekend, right?
Yes, yes.
How's it feel? You feel like you had a long weekend?
I did actually. I didn't get up to much. Had a bunch of plans and didn't really do anything. Well, that's not
Oh.
totally true. We did some stuff on Sunday, but I understand you had a busy weekend.
Oh my goodness. My weekend was full of not being on my phone, not answering emails, and building a chicken coop with my wife.
Oh,
It was
fantastic.
it was a wonderful way to spend, well, it was actually 2 weekends, but we did most of it this weekend. It was great. Perfect weekend for it. Beautiful outside. Welcome to Victoria. Why shouldn't we all just do everything outside?
Listen, chicken coops for everybody.
Right? Chicken
Let's
coops
do
for
it.
everyone. We can eat in them. We can eat from them. We don't have to go inside anymore. We can just eat outdoors. It's so beautiful in Victoria. Why not?
So, what's your take on the recent lockdown? How does that, or shutdown of restaurants and coffee shops, in-room
Yeah,
dining?
I feel that I have lots of feelings about it. I mean, first off, I think that we don't get a lot of chance to prepare for these things, and so that's always going to be an issue when it's just put out in the front of you, and all of a sudden you have to close again.
Yeah.
It was hard enough the first time to close and to get rid of extraneous staff and all of that. I when we did it the first time, I made a point to myself that I wouldn't open up until this was all over again,
Yeah.
and I didn't. I'm takeout only. I'm really lucky that my food and my products are really good for takeout.
Yeah, it's
And
conducive to that.
yeah, and I was able to stick to that, and I didn't put any tables and chairs back into my cafes, even though, there was pretty much almost daily pressure from customers and soon to be ex-customers who really wanted me to put tables and chairs in. And my approach to that was, I'm not comfortable for myself to do that, to have a full cafe. I'm not comfortable for my staff to have a full cafe. And I'm not comfortable for all the customers who just want to come in and have takeout. So I really put up a fight for the last year about not putting tables and chairs back in. I've been known to say that if I ever open up another cafe, I won't be buying tables and chairs ever again. And I don't know, it doesn't prove me right. It just kind of justifies my paranoia maybe over the last year. It makes me feel that I forced myself this last year to be in a better position for more lockdowns that if they were to come, and they are, and I regret that we didn't just lock down harder in Victoria right away. I think that would have been a better approach, but we did it
Yeah,
kind of
it's one of those
half-assed.
things. Well, I mean, I think there's pressure on both sides. Obviously, there's a lot of people that there are some people that don't agree with any of the lockdowns and they support the economy. I think in our business we have to comply to health orders daily.
Right.
Obviously, we're ran and mandated by in Victoria, Vancouver Island Health. So we have to cook food to temperature. We've got to clean our hands. We have to put in all these measures, anyways, even to operate. So for us, again, I've got two brands. The Zambries brand obviously is being punished,
Right.
and I use the word term punished. I guess it's not like it's not being deliberately put on us, but not every restaurant or coffee shop or hospitality business is the same.
Right.
I know, I can speak for myself with Big Wheel Burger. Our sales are kind of flat year over year, which I think is a humongous win for us. But we're also like you, we're set up for takeout. Our food travels well, and a big chunk of our business pre-pandemic was takeout anyway. So
Right.
the impact isn't as drastic, but
You didn't have to pivot as much for Big Wheel Burger as you would have for
no.
Zambrie's, I would
Well, we've
assume.
got a
I guess we're
younger.
going to hear from Jamie all about that eventually, aren't we?
Yeah, we've got a couple really good guests today. Jamie from Zambrie's and Big Wheel as well, and Emily from Bodega, Poco, and Tapa Bar. So I think their business model, they've got a very relevant point of view. Obviously, it's not quick service businesses.
No.
The bulk of their business has been done through sit down. I'd like to hear a little bit about their feedback on customers' responses to the different stages that we've kind of moved along, and then just how have they pivoted, and how is this new sort of restrictions affecting their staff, the customers, and the overall delivery of food. So let's welcome our guests.
Welcome. Thanks for being here, guys.
Hi, Jamie. How are
Thanks for
you?
having us. Hey, doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Emily, how are
Good.
you?
Good, thanks. Good.
Oh, that's good. Okay, let's start maybe with Jamie, and just get your overall perception of how the last year has been. What is your take on the different kind of like health orders, and then how are your customers dealing with it?
Sure. So obviously this most recent shutdown was a way easier transition for us because we already had all of our systems in place. Going back a year, it was a crazy time because, as you said, we're a sit-down restaurant. We weren't set up for takeout, so we didn't have packaging. We didn't have delivery systems. We didn't have takeout apps. Our staff weren't trained on how to deal with takeout. And then when we reopened, the whole look and feel of Zambri's changed. So there were barriers up and people were wearing masks and things like that. So that was really hard on the staff, especially. It was hard to police people. Luckily, we have a very loyal following at Zambri. So our guests are, for the most part, very supportive, super thankful that we're there, very generous as well. But there were some people who were non-compliant with rules as they came out and went along. So not wearing masks, switching tables. People seem to be a lot more verbally aggressive towards the staff. So we did have numerous staff who took on less shifts or took us. But I think I was there on Sunday doing our Easter takeout. And every single guest that came in was just like so thankful that we were there, so supportive. So we were able to pivot a lot easier this time than the last time. But I think back to last March, I'm like, I don't know how we did that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of PTSD, I would think.
It is,
having to see it come up again, and it's so nice to hear that you were better prepared for it this time.
Emily, what's your experience been overall going back?
I would agree that this time around we had the steps in place, but yeah, a year ago we put a ton of energy into rebranding the food and takeout packaging so that it would show up so representing our brand, and waffling with delivery or not. And I just think in-house dining, the sort of atmosphere, it's not just the food, the sort of atmosphere, food service, all of it is kind of it's an experience, and we were just worried about that being executed as takeout and delivery. And then we put on masks right out of the gate, and we had a hard time from a lot of customers a year ago, making us feel like we were overreacting, and but we sort of held fast, and that was the norm. And yeah, it was. I feel one of our servers described it well. She said she could have 3 tables, and one table would be their anxiety level would be such that they put on a mask anytime they ordered, anytime they would deliver food, anytime the server was around. And the next table, we sort of have to manage them and tell them to sit down when they weren't, keep them moving table to table, put their masks back on. And then you could have a third table announcing casually that they're visiting from Ontario. And so as a server, trying to gauge that spectrum of anxiety was really challenging this past year. But this past week, I was really touched and surprised by how supportive everybody was. People were sitting outside freezing just to support restaurants, and I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, walking through downtown, since this has been going on again, you see more people outside, and everyone, bundles up and seems to be taking it on the chin. It's pretty great to
Yeah,
see
I think the
Victorians
overall,
react.
I think the dichotomy between the ones that are compliant and the ones that aren't compliant are the most sort of shocking aspects. And then obviously you've got your staff who, they're there to work, they're making their wage, but they're not police, they're not public health officers, they're they have their own personal views as well. So I would think that their overall culture may be affected. How's the culture been? Emily, we'll start with you, just of your staff.
I think that was really challenging too. I mean, we're in the business of being yes people and being, we're hospitable. We want to say yes to whatever people ask for. But so to be put in the position of being a health officer and a bouncer and a security guard and a babysitter, to have 10 rules before you even got to be hospitable was a real challenge. I think even still people are having a hard time with every time there's a new set of rules you have to implement and put forward to people, and that's not really our line of work.
Yeah.
It is interesting though. It's we've talked about health officers a couple times in the last 10 minutes, and we are kind of like health officers, and we always have been, especially in the kitchen perhaps, where we're always taking temperatures and got our chlorine sticks out, testing parts per millions of this and parts per millions of that. And I mean, we are, I guess, maybe as close to a public health officer as most people see in a day. We interact with the inspectors, and we know what's expected. And even without COVID, we're in the industry of keeping people healthy while still providing them a really hospitable environment, and that for me is where it gets me, is I can't provide that hospitable environment anymore, but I can provide a safe environment. It's just not very friendly.
Well, I
I'm
think
working
that's
on
part
that.
of the challenge too. And I think it's one thing to, the kitchen obviously has to comply with health rules, and they're way more adapted to the stringent part of that. The front workers, the front of house staff, are priority is hospitality, and I think that's probably the biggest. And they're also dealing with the customers. I mean, I think in a normal time, you're dealing with customers that, may have dissatisfaction with certain dishes, or they've ordered wrong, or they're just showed up in a bad mood. So just dealing with that. And then you add the compounding factor of being, policing health orders or feeling an obligation to do that, I think is the big thing. What's the culture like been at Zambrie's, Jamie, just with the staff?
Yeah, it's been a lot of, like Emily said, we're in the yes business, and unfortunately we've had to say no to a lot of things. So not only reduction in seating, but just all of the extra steps that our staff has to take with wearing a mask, and the extra sanitization and cleaning, and taking names at the door. And then there are certain things that we want to follow and we really want to promote, such as only dining out with your household. But it's really tough for us to police that, because we're not required to take IDs at the door and ask for addresses and things. So like Emily said, when you hear people who are traveling from out of province or who are dining with another household, it definitely makes the staff more anxious, because they're thinking, well, should I say something to them? But their job is hospitality and customer service, and it's to make the table feel as warm and as welcome and as taken care of as possible. So the more kind of policing we do of guests, it kind of just pulls back from what hospitality is. But unfortunately, that's what we've had to do for the past year. So the culture has definitely changed.
Right. It's about making everyone feel comfortable now, including your staff. Before, it's mostly about making your customers feeling comfortable and safe. And now it's about making everybody feel equally safe and comfortable.
Yeah. And the mental health aspect on the staff. So financially, and wearing a mask on shift, and just the fear of being around the general public has been hard. So we've really tried to be supportive and make any adjustments we need to with staff scheduling, and giving them resources for mental health or whatever they might need.
Do you think overall the public health officers, or I mean, you got Bonnie Henry or the provincial government, is doing enough? Do you feel like it's too extreme? Like, what is your own view and the sentiment of your restaurants on the different mandates that are being handed down? And do you think it should get stricter or more
That
light?
this most recent lockdown was necessary with the number of cases rising, but obviously we're biased. It feels like restaurants are a little bit of a scapegoat with, okay, we're supposed to be the circuit breaker, but everywhere else can stay open. So I understand that guests don't wear masks when they're inside, whereas at the grocery store or the mall they do, but it just always feels like it's really on us. So I think to have a true circuit breaker and a true decrease in our cases, that it does need to be a little bit stricter across the board.
Emily, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I can see how these last restrictions were put in place. It makes a lot of sense, but I feel like I almost took them personally too, because it feels like, I feel like we end up being, like Jamie said, we're the whole circuit breaking is put on us. I even sort of thought if this was a way of keeping people from traveling, because if people can't go out and dine, that kind of limits the desire of wanting to travel. But I thought it seems like a very passive way to restrict travel when there's more direct ways you could do it by enforcing, I don't know, at the ferries or at the airports. And I felt a bit the feelings were conflicting. On the one hand, I understood why it was happening, but on the other hand, I sort of felt like a fall guy a bit.
Sam, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I empathize with you, Emily. I feel like a fall guy. Feel so torn between having to continue to provide employment and provide an income for myself and provide a safe place for the general public. And I only own a coffee shop, so it might be easier for me to provide that one or two times a day little something that a customer can get. And if I'm takeout only, I don't know. I would close down if I thought that everyone else was going to close down.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. It doesn't feel like everyone will comply. I mean, all it takes is one or two places not to comply, and what's the point?
Well, I think that's part of the thing. I mean, for me, as a person who's kind of in control of whether we're open or not and how we run our businesses, we do always do it with consultation of our staff. And I think initially I've always approached this pandemic, or at the beginning I approached this pandemic of, okay, this is a reality. Let's adapt as best we can. Let's adapt quickly. And I think that has benefited. Businesses have benefited by quick adoption and quick adoption of technologies like takeout apps and things like this. Frustrating thing at this stage, because we have vaccinations, so help is on the way. This new variant has got me a little bit concerned. Obviously, what's going on in Brazil, and this is directly from that country. The death rate that's there is pretty staggering from what I understand. And I think at this stage, when we're this close to getting rollouts, I mean, I think the frustrating part of it is that the vaccinations seem to be slow. We've got new health orders, but it doesn't seem quite enough. And I think to Emily's point, if we're going to do a proper circuit break, I think we need to go to shelter in place, much like I think what Ontario has gone to now, because it's a combination of just stopping the spread and then letting the vaccinations catch up. So I think if we did a 60-day or a 30-day or 45-day lockdown, that would buy us another month on top of that, because it's a month lag between infection and hospitalization, right, more or less. So I think, by then we've now maybe got 40% or 50% of our population. I know Israel, when they got to 50%, the case rate just dropped, and then subsequent right? Death rate and hospitalizations dropped as well. So it's not herd immunity, but just doing whatever we can do to get to that point, because my fear is, and when Bonnie announced this recent lockdown and she said 3 weeks, I'm like, cases that are just happening now will be
Just
approaching
starting
hospital.
yeah.
So at what point are we going to be realistic with ourselves and just say, let's just do a complete lockdown, shelter in place, 30 days, and then hopefully can move past this so that,
Do you think we're too late for that? And this is an open question. Do you think we're too late for a complete lockdown? Do you think that the government can still afford to support all the businesses that would have to actually shut down for a month or 45 days or whatever it is? How do you feel about that, Emily or Jamie?
I think that the government should, like I said, take stricter action. And if they do, hopefully have a better plan in place than the last time where it seemed like anybody could apply for CERB. I know that I knew of some people who applied who didn't quite qualify, and then you wonder if that will come back on them. But I hope that this time they can support whatever businesses they lay off. I know I'm worried about my staff at the moment because they're unsure with this most recent lockdown for restaurants if they're eligible for CERB or EI or what they're really getting. So then that falls on us as managers and owners to hope that they're taken care of. So I think that in order for the numbers to go down, they would have to just cut it across the board. What about you, Emily?
I sort of wish this had happened in November, like if we could have loaded up
100%,
by
100%.
locking it down then, and then maybe January after Christmas when people disregarded the recommendations. And yeah, now it sort of feels a little bit late in the game.
It does feel like it's a bit too late now, almost. Like you're right, Emily. It should have happened in November, if not before then. I think that people are just so tired. They got quarantine exhaustion. Even though in Victoria, NBC it hasn't been a complete lockdown ever, really. I mean, there were
maybe the
people
first
out.
couple weeks,
Yeah.
the unknown.
Yeah,
I think we know a lot more information now about things, and I think as much as I would have supported and wanted a stronger reaction in October, November, I think the combination of the summer weather and we got the dog barking in the background. Coco, quit talk.
That's Coco.
Is it Coco outside? Sorry.
Yeah. I'm
sorry.
I have some background information on the dogs.
It's not my dog today.
Not your dog today. So I think the combination of the timing, I mean, in reality, what else needs to lock down? A lot of people are working from home. I think some offices are doing some. I know we have about a 4-person office, head office. Our office is thankfully is big, and it's open air, and we have doors and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's much different. Well, I guess it's probably not that different from the last spring when it was a lockdown, because you do have warmer weather coming. So there's more outdoor activities. It's not like you're going to be freezing to death or getting rained on. So I think a lockdown now would be a lot more effective because of the information we know. People are more compliant. People are wearing masks. People are social distancing. We have warmer weather coming. We have vaccinations.
Yet we still have people going to Whistler, screwing things up for the province, still crossing over on BC ferries, coming from God knows where.
Brazil, apparently.
Apparently, if they're gonna lock down our industry, I want to see the BC ferries not locked down completely, because we need some access off the rock. But I mean, no one's monitoring that.
No, and I think that's one of the gaps in the whole systems too. I know I had to do an essential trip to Alberta, and I drove, but I honestly was like, well, what is I quarantined when I came back,
right?
But that was my choice. There's no health order to do it, and they were explicitly actually said you don't have to do anything. And I just thought that was really strange. And I think that kind of erodes people's confidence a little bit. And I think that's dangerous. Like, as much as, sheltering and quarantining and isolate, that kind of stuff is not great. I think having a, consistent messaging is important.
It is. And to know what is allowed and what's not allowed. Because right now, if I want to go to Vancouver, I can. I can just say, well,
Yeah, I'm going to go to
it's
Vancouver.
essential, whatever essential
Yeah.
means. I mean, I would love to be able to hear what essential actually means, so that you can see people coming off the boat and going, is this really essential travel?
Yeah. Well, and I
Right?
think it's up to
That sounds like a police
interpretation.
state, but also it feels like
We're so close to the finish line.
I
Like,
know.
truly we are. So I think
Frustratingly
being a little
so.
bit more disciplined would help. There's recent in the news, there's a couple of restaurants in Vancouver that just refuse to comply. What do you guys think about that? Did you hear about it?
First of all, I think it will be horrible for their business down the line. But more importantly, like, we're all in this together. So I think that the only thing we can do is comply. And I agree with the health orders. And of course, I also agree that it sucks that it came down on us. So at a micro level, they're always it feels like, because we're in it, targeting restaurants. So that I wish that they would kind of, like you guys said, have more clear guidelines, less blurred lines. But those restaurants in Vancouver are just kind of ruining it for everybody. That's how I feel.
You're absolutely right, and I think you bring up a really good topic of trust and trust in a business. The public has to trust us to come back, and places that are kicking out health officers out of their restaurants.
I couldn't believe it, to be honest.
How
I
are
couldn't
they ever
believe it.
going to get customers back?
Yeah.
Are there ways that you're trying to maintain that trust with your customers, Emily? Are there ways that you're going about doing that?
I think that we have such a loyal clientele that I think they can tell that we're sort of choosing to do the right thing, where often doing the right thing is counter to making money, which is a strange place to be put as a business person. That's very counterintuitive. But and it's kind of a two-way street too. I sort of realized how much trust we also are we have to put in the guests that do come in. I have to trust that they didn't just roll in from traveling, and even if I wouldn't have any ways to police that, even if it's tricky. It's been tricky.
Yeah, you almost have to turn off part of your brain.
I remember in the 80s when Tylenol got recalled because of the poisoning. I think that was one of the first times that there was actually that corporate trust was on the table. And I think that from the Tylenol days, where they regained that trust by spending money and doing the right thing, I think we can look to that kind of trust building exercise, and spend the money, do the right thing, make sure we're in the public eye as often as we can, telling people that restaurants in Victoria are healthy, they're good, we're on top of cleaning, and we're doing protocol correctly. But it really does. It takes a couple of those bad seeds or bad apples to really question it in the general public's mind. But we all come, like we all have our old customers who are really loyal, and they will trust us, won't they? And hopefully they will all come back. But it's the general public's trust.
I think they
that we need
appreciate.
to-
Do you find that the customers appreciate the measures you guys have taken and support it?
Yeah.
Our customers are amazing. They're so loyal and they're so supportive, and they're just always so thankful that we're there. And I think that I'm sure, Emily, we have a lot of the same customer base, and people in Victoria have just been so, for the most part, kind to us, and they really do notice all the steps we're taking. We often get comments where, like, I can't believe how you guys have pivoted, and like, I never thought of Zambrie's for takeout or delivery before, but now it's something that they might order for their kids rather than just thinking of us as like a destination place, which is really nice. So I'm always just so grateful for, like, the faces that I get to still see. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I did have a flicker when this last set of restrictions came down. I had a flicker of unreasonable frustration. Like, what was the point of doing all the right things all this time? if we're going to get punished anyway, when the few could have been punished, and that then we might not be in this position. But I guess one way of maintaining the trust of our guests was, and I would continue to do this the right way, but was sort of a long game, and that sort of settling for less throughout this whole time ultimately will pay off, I guess. In the long term, instead of just having done whatever we wanted this whole time, made a bunch of money so that this went into effect.
Well, I think that loyalty of I think it matters. Like I do think in this day and age where, we may not see the reward right now. I think the reward is in just satisfaction in that we are complying and that we are doing our best to keep our staff and our customers healthy. I do think that, like Jamie mentioned about setting up the systems with the takeout, and we have a line of takeout products, and Emily's business is pivoted to do that. That's the reward that will come down the road. I do believe that the Roaring 20s. I mean, this history repeats itself, as they say, and there was a Roaring 20s 100 years ago after the last pandemic. And what do you guys think about that? Do you guys think? I personally think that we'll be in a heyday for as soon as this is over for a couple years. What do you guys think?
I think that the demand is just so pent up for people to travel and see their friends and celebrate all the milestones of the past year, so birthdays and retirements and weddings. So I sort of felt it at times during the past year when restrictions loosened a bit and you were allowed to have a little bit of a bigger bubble, and we really saw it in the restaurant. Like we were busy, we had to turn people away because we didn't have the seating capacity. So I feel very hopeful that everything that we've done for this past year is going to come full circle for us, and we'll just do hopefully a big economic boom and hopefully a lot of support in restaurants.
I agree. I feel like people are dying for it. And I think I also learned over this time too that it isn't just about people eating and drinking, but it's like people are hungry for it on a level, like it's where culture happens. And I think people miss that too. And I always joke, I'll hug the next person who spills a drink on me in a busy bar. I'll be just dying to have my face grabbed.
That's awesome.
Well, I think that's another good point. I mean, obviously, with Zambri's, it's Italian, and there's always been a strong sense in the Italian community of breaking bread, and that's where families connect and the socialization. And I think where some people just eat to give sustenance to themselves, this idea that that's where community is built and strengthened, and that's where the passion of that is. I think that hopefully will be a byproduct of not having it, is that they'll realize, wow, how important is that in our lives? And I think that, to me, hopefully will be what lingers across.
I agree with all of you. I think that's the potential for that outpouring or orgies in the streets of Victoria, and everyone just like hugging and
Sam.
Well, I mean, eating lots of grapes and wine and stuff in the streets. I meant it in the classic sense of the word. But I'm concerned because I don't think BC ever really locked down hard. Not like I don't know. I listen
France
to a lot of news from New York and LA about their restaurant industry there, and it's such a lockdown, and like zero people going into the restaurants until very recently, and whereas Victoria, it never felt like it locked down that hard. So I don't know if we're going to see that outpouring. I mean, we're going to see a lot of people wanting to travel, I think, out of Victoria and getting off Vancouver Island maybe and exploring more. I certainly hope that everyone just wants to go out and eat.
I think the numbers of people that are going, like, you got to remember, some restaurants never opened again. Yeah. So the true aspect of what the capacity is in the city is a little bit unknown. I fully expect probably half of them to not open or close shortly after, because even though we had really good government supports with subsidies and whatnot, I do think that there's a bunch, like I call it the Walmart crowd, where 50 or 60% of the people go to Walmart and shop at Walmart and whatever. They're kind of the average person who's wanting a decent deal. But I think there's a ton of people that aren't going out. I do. I mean, I know, there's still customers that talk at Big Wheel Burger where they're like, oh, is it safe to go back to Big Wheel? We're like, we've been at takeout, not let anybody in since the beginning. And I do think there's a bunch of people, if you look at the capacity, I'm sure, Bodega and Tapa Bar, just like Zambri's is like, we're at 25% capacity, what we did before. So those people aren't, like, if everybody was ordering out and ordering in and feeling comfortable, it would be maybe 50% or 60% or 70%, despite not in-room dining. So I think there's a ton of people that aren't actually participating in the restaurant industry, which they're going to come back, and they're going to come back to, maybe 50 or 60% or 40% less restaurants to enjoy, which will, the ones that are left standing will it'll be there and hopefully boom time for them. But
yeah, I think that the appreciation for restaurants is what everybody's really realized. Like you don't really, you go to a restaurant and you never really thought about what you loved or enjoyed about it as much as you do now. Like just the service and the community and the hedonistic feel that you get in a restaurant isn't the same as if you take home sometimes you want to sit on your couch and eat some pizza, but going to a restaurant and having that service and being with people is just, I think, what most people are missing. And those people who maybe are the crowd you talked about, Kaylin, are probably waiting for their vaccine and are immunocompromised, or maybe they've lost their job due to COVID. So it'll be nice when everything comes back and people are healthy.
Come on back.
So speaking of vaccines, are you guys going to line up for your vaccines? And if you are you doing it for personal reasons or for your business reasons, or both?
Good question. I just signed up today to be on the registration list, and I wondered that too. I feel like I can't afford to get it professionally, and I just don't want it personally. Yeah, but I wondered which weighed on me more heavily, if it was for my job or for my person.
Right.
Interesting.
It is such a hard call. I know that I'm battling that internally. I don't want to get the vaccine, but I don't want to.
You're an anti-vaxxer, Sam?
I'm not an anti-vaxxer.
What the hell?
I'm an I don't know what I'm putting in my body guy. If I don't know what it is, and if it's never been tested, I'm still.
It is being tested. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's being tested on
There's millions
everyone
and
who
millions
signed
of
up.
people that have had the vaccine.
You know what? I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but if herd immunity works out to like maybe 65%, I really hope that I could be part of the 35%. I mean, I'm probably going to get it just for the sake of my business.
You're going to get
I'm
it
a
now,
leader
bro.
You
just jinxed yourself.
Yeah, I am gonna go get it, but I'm gonna get it so that I can exude that trustworthiness to my customers and to my staff, and that's the only reason I'm getting it. I'm not getting it because I believe it's the right thing for Sam Jones to get in his arm.
I'm kind of with you, Sam.
Yeah.
What?
I trust. Well, okay, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I trust the vaccine. But if I were, I don't know, say I worked from home and I didn't really see many people, I might wait and see what the effects were. But for me, like being around people, that's what's the most important thing for me, is to have it for others, not for myself.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the point in my mind, is it's not really about you, it's about other people and the effect on other people. And that's
the same thing as having a mask on, right?
Well, 100%. Yeah.
It's for other people.
Yeah. I mean, I think all these things are for the greater good and all that. I mean, I will line up. Obviously, I'm older than everybody here. So I will probably hopefully be in the queues quickly.
I think you were able to sign up this morning at 8:00.
I don't know if I was 71. What is it now? I looked up because I actually went on the site today and it was like 71.
Yeah, I was thinking about you.
Fuck, I'm not quite that old.
Not yet.
It is true. Last May when we reopened, I thought I had COVID every day for some different reason.
Oh.
I think about it enough.
Yeah.
I had it, and true more worried about actually having it myself. So thinking of all the people I might have interacted with that I could have given it to, and yeah, that was definitely the larger. I felt more stressed out about that. I was interacting with public. I didn't want that on my shoulders.
No, and I think there'll be a
what
peace of
about,
mind. Sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
well, there's been a lot of discussion about restaurant workers being, whether or not they should be considered frontline workers and be in line for the vaccine. So how do you guys feel about that?
I don't know. I think
100% agree.
We are frontline workers, not by choice, but by the fact that people want to eat out, and we are open still.
Well, it's an important food supply chain
it's
too.
Part of the food supply chain for sure.
So I think that goes without question. And I also think that age group between 20 and 40 should be a prioritized group. They're the ones where a lot of the spreading is happening, allegedly. I think some of the spreading is happening in the older group too, but just vaccinate them. But it really comes down to supply again. So
and our industry is culturally significant, and if we're trying to get more people to have the vaccine, we're better to start than something culturally significant like eating out. Like all your baristas, all your servers, they've all been vaccine. So why? Yeah. So it just makes it easier for other people who are coming out to your restaurants to go, oh yeah, it's pretty commonplace, I guess.
Well, and I think the lost point in it, there's a break in the PPE because the diners don't have to wear it while they're eating, and they're talking, and the servers are coming up. Even though the servers have PPE, there's a break there. Obviously, my girlfriend works in the health. She's a X-ray tech. And she's been vaccinated with her first vaccine, and she felt a great sense of relief once that happened. But they do, and she even says they have the best, like, fortunately, it doesn't always work out that way, but in our community, they have high-quality PPE. They are protected. They have long-established guidelines when it comes to infectious diseases and how to protect themselves from it. So that environment, they're already been doing it for decades. Restaurants, I haven't been, and I think, as far as the people, I know grocery store workers are getting vaccinated, so they're on the next wave of vaccinations for workers. But I think that's a gap in the system in my mind.
Well, I think the grocery store workers aren't as frontline as we are. We're a lot closer to people's foods, people's plates, people's glasses, people's mouths.
100%.
And I think we're far more frontline than the grocery store worker is.
Well, and I think the other factor too, going on a bit of a rant here, but a lot of people that are in the restaurant industry are 18 to 35 or 18 to 40 in that category, and because of housing prices and all that, they're forced to be with roommates.
Right.
They're sort of, because of the cutbacks, they're in the lower income bracket, so they're having to work maybe multiple jobs, so they're going from different businesses to other businesses, and they're socializing with, it's petri dish or whatever of bacteria potential.
Yes. Ugh.
So let's vaccinate them.
And okay, so that brings up a neat point, or not a neat point, a point about PPE. Is it's not neat at all. It's kind of gross. So how about, we're not anti-vaxxers, but we all agree that
I think the jury's still out on that.
So we're not anti-vaxxers, but we don't want to put some things in our bodies. How about masks? I mean, the only reason I would get a vaccine is for other people. So that's why we wear a mask. So why is it so hard to convince people to just wear a mask? It's not like it's a vaccine that could change your life potentially.
I think it's just that people feel controlled by it. So it's like, why are you telling me what to do? It's another one of those things. And dealing with people coming into the restaurant since the past, when was it, 4 months ago, when you had to wear a mask until you sat down at the table, because it wasn't like that before. Most people have been very compliant, but the few people who do come in and you say, oh, you have to have a mask on, I can bring you one outside or whatever, they just seem to be like, oh, are you serious? I'll just cover my mouth, my hand, or they'll get up to go to the washroom and not wear it. And then, it just seems like a control thing in my mind, where it's like, well, we're all doing it, let's just do it.
Emily, do you have any experienced people not wearing masks when asked?
There's been one or two where people said that they had a medical reason not to, which I think they were the only person in the restaurant, so it wasn't a particular concern, but it did beg the question why they're out in the first place if they had a medical issue to not wear a mask. But not as many as I maybe expected. I don't know. Yeah, people have been pretty compliant.
That kind of puts you in an awkward position when someone says they have a medical condition that precludes them from wearing a mask. I mean,
yeah.
Do we have the ability?
Comes back to that
Are
policing.
we expected to ask?
Listen, it comes back to that policing thing. We're not cops. We're not in charge of that.
Right.
We're there to do hospitality. This is all a voluntary system for the most part, anyway. So we're being asked to comply. So the expectation is that you are complying, but it's not the hospitality staff's job to be the police on it. And I know there's certain places that are acting like that, and I think you enter an area where you're going to be in trouble.
I've got a great customer. I mean, he's always been a great customer until COVID. Then became a problematic customer because he refuses to wear a mask, and he comes in every day for an espresso with his two workmates, and they wear masks, and he's in and out in 2 minutes. I mean, but my staff at first wanted me to kick him out. I'm like, but he has a medical excuse, he says, and who am I to question the medical excuse? I don't know. It's a hard issue, and I have not dealt with it very well. I don't think I've dealt with it the way I have, because I still let this one guy come in. But I know he's going to be quick. He's in and out. He consumes his beverage outdoors, so he doesn't drink it inside. And but he just refuses. And he's normally a pretty decent guy, I think. So I don't want to piss him off.
You should just tell him that he also has the right to be a nudist. It's not in your house.
I love it.
I feel like the no shoes, no food, or no shoes,
no shoes, no shirt, no service.
Nobody makes such a big deal about that, but it's not really that different, It's just like, well, you're coming into our house. You want me to wear a mask,
Well, it's all the other health orders too. I mean, there's 100 that we have to comply with every day, normal. So it's not just about the COVID experience and that. Is there anything else you guys want to add to the discussion here as we wrap up?
I think we really hit all the points. Yeah.
Well,
thanks for having us.
Thank you guys for taking the time and really enjoyed the perspective. And let's hope we do the Roaring 20s.
Yeah, thanks.
And we're out there on the dance floor at some point.
I hope so.
It was a hard.
I hope so.
It was a really hard topic, this one, because it touched a lot on personal belief systems, I think, as well.
Well, I've learned a lot about a couple of people in this call.
Oh my God, let it go,
May have
man.
to change my view on. Kidding.
Don't come back to the office, Kaylin.
Oh, we're having a meeting, Jamie. I've got to book it in. It's a half hour. We are sitting down. Just kidding.
You know what?
My afternoon is full.
Yeah.
If you get your vaccine, why do you care if I don't?
Because you're going to give it to my grandmother, maybe.
I know. I'm kidding. I'm just egging you on now.
Don't even. Well, thank you guys for your time, and we'll see you for takeout.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Great.
All right. Thanks,
guys.
Soon. Cheers. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Well, that was a good discussion there, Sam.
Yeah, it's a hard one too, because it does touch on personal views. And
well, there's so many aspects: personal views, compliance, legal, law enforcement, like business, like wages and how they can pay their bills. I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for the people that work in an industry. It's a tough, a lot of times thankless profession. But, through our Bread and Butter Collective, we're trying to, bring, dignity and living wages and, the career path in the hospitality industry being a little bit more focused.
Right. We're not here to judge people. I mean, I think as soon as COVID started, it was a real good time for all of us to just end the judgment and just be okay with the fact that we all can't agree on the perfect approach
No.
for handling this. 'Cause
And
there
it's
is
around
no
the
perfect
world.
approach,
You
right?
know, there's certain approaches that worked. I mean, look at New Zealand as a prime example. If it was about saving lives, they did it.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see what the impact is, and I'm not quite sure what their government, you know, how much their, you know, national debt increased as a result. Like, are they doing what Canada did? I know in the States that the restaurants were just suffering because there wasn't the supports that we have. I think there was a PPP loan that they were able to apply for, and which some got, but there was no wage subsidies, there was no CERB, there's no rent abatement,
No,
or limited.
It was really hard in the U.S.
Yeah.
I feel so lucky to be a Canadian most of the times, especially during this. It's been
Totally,
great.
you know, but I also think there's a key thing in this is that it's great to celebrate that the Canadian government, you know, was pretty quick in getting these financial supports, but I mean, our budget is blown through, you
Of
know,
course.
and relative to other countries is like, where is that going to lead us in competitiveness, inflation, interest rates, and just economic. So I definitely would like to see more accountability for this, because it's one thing to have done all this and just write checks and write checks and write checks, but there is going to be a post-pandemic reality and world, and where does that set us amongst all the other nations?
It
And
all starts with soft drink tax.
oh my God.
That's how
Yes.
we're going to pay for this through
Well,
soft drink taxes.
you know, and
Oh
you've
my
got the
God.
carbon taxes, and you've got
Mhm.
this, and you've got, you know, I know our property real estate in Canada relative to G20 countries has, I think the average is maybe it's increased since 2000 by 65%, and we've increased by 165% our real
Whoa.
estate. So I don't know whether we are maybe just behind global real estate markets, or, you know, we've also increased personal debt, and our national debt has gone up at a higher rate than other countries. So I think obviously that's not our, you know, we're in the restaurant business, but we're not economists or politicians or anything. But I think, you know, there'll be more, you know, challenges as we move forward.
There will be. I think our challenges are how we're going to keep our doors open, what's going to make everyone that we deal with feel safe, and to be able to move beyond this into the future where we can have restaurants and have this beautiful environment that we can be catered to.
Yeah, well, and the rebound. Like, what does the
Yeah.
rebound look like? I mean, I know, you know, we've kind of treaded water, as I'm sure you have. Some things have worked out. We've kind of aligned our financials. We've, you know, focused on making sure our staff are taken care of, and I think that will be a legacy from this, which will be positive. But what does the future look like? And I'm pretty optimistic about it. So hopefully, you know, as we move forward, that will come to fruition.
Yeah, I guess I'm your pessimist because I'm not as optimistic as you are, which is weird because normally I live my life in a very optimistic way.
Yeah, I'm like
But,
Debbie Downer, anti-vaxxer over here.
Man, just give me the jab, I guess. Give me the jab. Okay, I would like to start thanking all of our members at the Bread and Butter Collective. I'd like to start with, because it's alphabetical, 2% Jazz, Agrius, Bodega, and Big Wheel Burger, and Nourish, and Charlotte, the Quail, and Drum Roaster Coffee, and Habit Coffee, and Foo, and Cafe Fantastico.
We've got the culinary classroom, Camosun College Culinary School, Filippi, Herald Street, Brew Works, Hey Happy Coffee, Hoyne, La Pasta, House of Botang, Part and Parcel, Poco, Pizzeria Prima Strata. I got to put my glasses on. Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, The Drake, Tapa Bar, Taco Stand Al Pastor, Took Catering, Zambri's.
Hey, Kaylin, does it feel like that list is growing to you?
It is growing.
Oh my God, people are joining our Bread and Butter Collective. That's
yes,
really
it's
great.
been a fantastic support group for us, and we're not just sitting there bitching. We're actually trying to solve
No.
systemic problems in the restaurant industry.
That's what the podcast is for, sitting around and bitch.
Yeah, we can
but
bitch at the
behind the
podcast.
scenes, we're really proactive and really positive, right?
We're just driving it forward.
We
You
really
can reach
are.
us at our website, breadandbuttercollective.com. You can learn a little bit more about what we do. We're also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, we look forward to our next conversation next week. So like, subscribe, 5-star, whatever you do on your podcast, and spread the word.
All of it, 5-star us.
Don't 4-star us.
What's the point of
What's the point of
4-starring? If
4-star?
you like us 4 stars,
You
like
either
us
do
6.
5-star or 1-star.
That's
Like,
right.
No middle ground.
All right.
Right.
Kaylin,
Thanks,
thanks for a great day.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Cheers.
Be nice.